Hey guys, Mr. Bogan here. Big shout out to Kevin. Thanks so much. If you saw the clip, I just got to drive a car that's 104 years old.
It was 106. Forgive my math. While I've got you though, guys, I will get you to stick around because at the end of this video, there's a startup. Kevin actually starts it up, and I've got a few clips of it driving around as well. So hang around, check those out. Thanks, guys.
4 years old. It's actually classed as a veteran car because it's so old. It's hand cranked. I'll put some footage up of that later. I'm blown away. One of the best interviews I've done in a little while. Thanks so much. Check out the channel. Mr. Bogan. See you around.
The car was, it's mainly built in late 1913, and it's a 1913 52B model Fiat, 2.6 litre, puts out about 26 horsepower at 2,000 revs. Would have been manufactured in late 13, and being an import from a non-Commonwealth country, it would have been imported as a rolling chassis without a body.
Yep.
Otherwise they would have had to pay duty on the body too, so it would have come out as a rolling chassis and then had a body put on by a body maker in Sydney. Coach builder, the body makers were called. One of the early coach builders was actually Holden. It was bought by a publican in John Cusack from Cogra in 14. The original number plate which I've got on it was 2715, which was actually probably a 1910 or 11 number plate and must have been recycled, I guess. In the 1930s he got rid of the Cogra pub and bought one up in Gosford and took the car with him. Shortly after that he sold it to the local bottle-o in Gosford, and then
to the bottle-o.
And then in about mid-1930s it was bought by the Clark family that I got it from, and lived on a little plum farm up in Somersby, and the back was chopped off it and turned from a car into a ute, and that was how I got it.
We've actually got photos of that. Kevin's been nice enough to actually provide us with a sheet with a bit of photos, so we'll just edit that into the video here for you guys to have a look at.
Kevin's actually done a fantastic job of restoring this car, especially from these photos, as you can see. As much as he doesn't give himself credit for it, he's done an absolutely wonderful job on it. It was a pleasure talking to him, and he was absolutely chock full of knowledge. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do, guys. Thanks.
That was the condition you received the vehicle in, wasn't it?
They're pretty rugged.
Yeah, so there was bits missing, and he's done a fantastic job on restoring it.
I've done a job on restoring it. I've done as much as I possibly could myself. Actually, I've done a lot of kilometres. It's been to Queensland twice and Victoria twice, and up to Perisher Valley, and yeah, all over New South Wales. Worst thing that ever happened, there's no shock absorbers on them, and the springs are pretty rugged, and the tyres have got 65 pound in them. It's the pressure that keeps them on the rim, so that eventually it shook that much that the actual brass in the brass radiator all started to crack and split, and it had to be completely replaced.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't do that myself, but much of it I have done myself. It's quite like me. The further back you photograph it from, the better it looks.
I actually really appreciate the fact that it is a little bit more rough around the edges, but you actually get it out on the road. You drive it. Yeah. That's the main thing. Like, I've seen plenty of pristine model classic cars restored perfectly, and they never see anything but the life of a trailer.
Well, if you're going to really drive them when they're this old, you do spend an awful lot of time. For every 20 minutes you spend making it look nice, you spend a couple of hours lubricating things to, lubrication to prevent them from wearing out. A modern day car, you could drive it for 40,000 kilometres without even doing anything other than put petrol in it and oil if it needed it. But you really, every weekend you drive it, you've got to go home and spend a couple of hours doing maintenance on it. Otherwise it will wear out.
What about this car would you say is your most hated and your favourite feature?
I think one of the most interesting things about it is the parking lights and the tail light are kerosene. The headlights are acetylene gas, which is both the most hated and most loved thing about it, because to light the headlights you've got to drip water on calcium carbide, pipe it around to the lights, start it to fire up, which takes about 20 minutes or so to get a decent head of gas up. And then if the person says, well good, I've seen what gas headlights look like, you turn the water off, it'll take an hour for it to run out of gas again, and then you've got to pull it all apart and wash it out because it's quite corrosive. Years ago, a guy in the Veteran Car Club in Sydney got a couple of 44-gallon drums full of carbide to feed everybody in the Veteran Car Club with as much as they'd ever want for the rest of their life. And he had it parked in his house in the suburb of Sydney, and a fire started. The fire brigade turned up and started to pour gallons and gallons of water on it, which just made more and more acetylene gas and made the fire worse. Anyhow.
They really call it fanning the flames with something you can add water to and make it worse. That's a real trouble. Do you find it's hard to drive?
The steering is very heavy. It is right-hand gear shift, would have been on the left originally from Italy. It's 4-speed. First gear is very, very, very low, so you really don't need to use it. You just use second, third and the fourth. There's no synchromesh, so it goes if you haven't got the right number of revs. And it's what is called a gate change. It's like a H cut out of a plate of steel, and you've got to go directly down, up and then across and up. And have your revs right too. So that's probably one of the most enjoyable things about it, is when you eventually get good enough to be able to change gears without it making strange noises.
In this shot you can see the shifter. It's actually got physical gates. It shifted right to left. First was still forward and second was back, but it shifted right to left, which was a bit weird. You'll also notice that it's got the accelerator in the middle, and that dial in the center of the steering wheel was used to adjust the timing. Down at the bottom was the button he spoke about for the oil pressure as well. It's really different inside.
The unique dial on the steering wheel here, what's that used for?
The early motor cars generally had two levers, one to advance and retard the spark, and one for the idle speed, for the throttle. Model T Fords didn't have a foot throttle. This actually does have a foot throttle, which is in between the brake and the foot brake and the clutch.
So the accelerator's in the middle?
Yes, and was commonly up until probably the mid-20s or so, many of the cars. Most cars were in the middle, and it's a dumb idea. This foot brake works on the tail shaft, and the handbrake works on the back wheels. Which is once again not even the early model Rolls Royces were exactly that setup. And
how do you find the braking actually goes?
Very carefully. It takes you 2 or 3 times as long to stop as it would with modern brakes. You haven't got a lot of instrumentation. You've got 2 gauges there. One reads your oil pressure. On a modern day car you might be looking for 40 to 60 pound oil pressure. This does about 4 or 5 pound oil pressure.
Yep.
And below that there is a knob. When you push it in, it reroutes the oil out of the oil pressure gauge and goes down a pipe and lubricates the steering box.
Yeah.
It then dribbles out the bottom of the steering box and dribbles down your drop arm on your steering to lubricate one of the joints on the steering. The other gauge runs at about 3 or 4, and it is air pressure.
Yep.
To start it you have to pump, and this puts pressure in the fuel tank, squeeze the fuel forward to the carburetor, and then you can start it up. And once it starts up, so that you don't have to keep on pumping it when you go along the road, it actually steals pressure out of the exhaust manifold and keeps it topped up with exhaust gases.
So essentially you're keeping the fuel tank pressurized with exhaust gases.
Yes, exactly.
That must be a bit of engineering to make sure that's not going to cause you any trouble.
It was, yeah, many of them, the simplest way, most cars had the fuel system, the fuel tank under the scuttle above the engine so that it just fell downhill. Model Ts actually had it under the seat originally and it dropped down to the carburettor. The catch was when you started to climb a really incredibly steep hill, the fuel ran from the carburettor back to the fuel tank. So that by 1923 they had, by the 1923 they'd put the fuel tank up under the dash and made it into a gravity system.
Stop in for coffee. So Kevin's going to do a start up on an old vintage Fiat.
Veteran?
Veteran
Is pre-1919. Vintage is 1919 to 1930 inclusive.
So we have ourselves a veteran Fiat. We learn something new every day.
It won't start immediately. It's got a large delivery system that has to be filled up with fuel before it'll fire.
There we go.
The magneto just dead shorted and that's why it stops. And once all the engine's filled with it, should start a bit quicker.
There we go, look at that.
You must have done the motor up with this, have you?
Again?
You must have done the motor up with this,
I think I did. It was about 60 or 70,000 K ago, but it did get done up.
No problem getting rings and all that?
I had the pistons made, and the rings. Yeah, the bore on it is 80mm, and plus 20,000 worn, which is sort of the same size ring would fit a Honda Civic.
Is that right?
Yeah, but a Honda Civic's 80mm bore and 80mm stroke. Going back years now. This is 80mm bore and 140 stroke.
So you have to get this made for different.
No, they're still the same.
A question for you. Oh, no, well, when you're done, I was going to talk to you about the headlights.
Yeah, the gas.
What we thought. We said that earlier.
I went last year. You bit off.
There you go. See, I was estimating.
20 minutes. So you can
Give the horn a squeeze for us, Kev.
go and have another beer. Hey, you got to
Love it.
For the high-speed mountain vehicle that this is, you have a second horn, which is actually like a steam train's got a whistle, and they let the steam out. That's called an explosion whistle because when you pull the lever, it lets the explosion out.
There you go. There's no fan belt on it because there's no fan there in the normal place. The fan is actually cast into the flywheel. It's got the vanes in it there. And,
So it's a sucker fan.
sorry?
It's a sucker fan, not a blower.
Yeah. But that's why there's no flutes in the bonnet. They don't want the air to get out. It's sealed there and underneath the tin tray. And
Rather than sucking the air
Does
into
it
the
run
front,
cool?
rather than actually having
Does
air
it
sucked in
work?
the front,
Does it
it's
run
actually
cool?
sucking it through the back of the engine bay, hence no cowling. It's pulling it through the front, over the engine.
These
out
be
the back.
carbide
Very
lens?
interesting.
yes, calcium carbide.
Yeah, acetylene gas.
Acetylene gas, yeah.
No, we said
You drip water on calcium carbide to make the...
See, you got to come around and light them up after the gas is produced.
Yeah, and the whole thing it'll take 3/4 of an hour to give you a demonstration. You've got to start them and wait for it to form and then pull them apart and wash them out. And so just take the word for it, they work.
Kevin's just such a charmer. He's just taking off with me missus, taking her for a stroll. You'd think he still got it. Off he goes. There she goes. I've lost her.
Oh.
Pleasure indeed.
Alright Kevin, thank you so much. I'm Booster Bogan here with Kevin. Got to see and learn a little bit about this gorgeous Fiat. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure indeed.
Thanks so much guys, see you later.